BTC Macro, welcome to the show, man. We took a little break last week, actually. Everything's been absolutely manic, but we're back on at it today, right? How you doing?
I'm doing well, my friend. Everything is going well.
Good, good.
Lots of stuff to talk about. Actually, like those last 2 weeks were not as eventful in terms of news. We
Mm,
had news, but they were not like as intense as the previous like few weeks were, especially with all the Tesla buying and all that stuff.
yeah,
Well, we've got some bad news, like just a few of them, but lots of good stuff as well that are definitely not worth talking about.
yeah. No, I think we've had a fair few things happening, right? Central banks, digital currencies. So we've got the CBDCs. There's more around Tether. What else we got? We got more buys, Bitcoin buys, right? Square and MicroStrategy. What else do we need to talk about today? I think Bitcoin funds and ETFs. I think that's always an interesting topic, just to pick up, see where we are. And actually, the past week, I've also heard more about big banks wanting to get in, and I think also uh, seems to be a bit of FUD coming out of China. Seems to be they're declaring some kind of war on banning Bitcoin potentially. But we can discuss all those topics. Let's kick off. Let's kick off.
Yeah. Look, we've got like a lot of stuff to cover.
Mm,
I would just start with the CBDCs because it's just a topic that a lot of people will keep hearing,
yeah.
and there will be a lot of talk about what these central banks are going to do. But people need to understand that for something like this to be rolled out in a society, in Western societies,
Mm,
is kind of a very hard thing to do. However, the role of stablecoins right now is like a CBDC, but it's just not controlled directly
yeah.
by the central bank. If the central banks want to get involved, if the central bank, especially the Fed, I'm not going to talk about the rest of them,
Mm,
they could actually already have a pretty solid infrastructure to work on. So they wouldn't even have to do a lot of stuff to get things going. They wouldn't even really have to roll their own technology. So they would just say, okay, look, we like this thing. So just give us the power, just cooperate with us. And they will just work with Tether as they've been working with any other bank. Now, when it comes to China, things are quite different because they have a different political structure,
mm.
so they control things a lot more than Western societies control, let's say, their own banks. And the whole banking system is quite complex, and it's not just something simple that we just like flip a switch and just say, we're going to use this system now. So no matter what comes out of, Europe or the US and all that stuff, these things are pretty far away. There's nothing solid now. It's more like research stuff. But when it
Mm.
comes to China, it looks like they are coming with something. So the US specifically does have the stable coins, which are growing really fast, which could be beneficial to them. While in China, we see this new CBDC uh, already getting tested, and potentially maybe it replaces some banks and their infrastructure.
Like you said, it kind of different states operate differently, right? And like you said, I'd say it's a bit more of a control state, and they'd clearly want their own digital coin rather than having to let's say rely quote on the likes of I don't know USDC or even Tether. But like you said to that point, though, interestingly enough, you're right. I mean, if I was a bank, would I want to use a stable coin that's already out there, or would rather use a stable coin that's linked to either my bank or to my state?
Yeah. The thing is that banks, they don't really have the money. Like when it comes to stablecoins, it's actually the money is there. It's backed one to one.
Yeah.
So it's way easier for them to just go on a stablecoin and be like, okay, we're gonna print X amount, you're gonna send it to X people. So it's a lot easier to kind of control because the tech is there. It's something very specific, and it's easily programmable. Whereas if you just try to create something from start, from scratch, then you have to make it secure. If we're talking, let's say, for example, about starting a new chain,
Mm.
it's not something that will be ready in a year. Plus, even if it's ready, like as you can see from all these different layer ones, all of them will have some sort of problem. So it might be a lot easier to just go with something simple that already exists and just go with it. And because, these things already seem to have some adoption. And so far, the one that seems to be benefiting is the US dollar, because it's already the one that's ahead of the rest. And it could just keep on progressing faster than all the rest. Because we also saw it with the crash. A lot of people saw USDC or USDT as a way to have exposure to the US dollar after the crash, because they thought the dollar was going to go up. It didn't go up. However, we just see that more USD is being adopted than the rest, because in crypto, you have about $50 billion of worth of stablecoins, which is not a lot. But if that keeps on growing, eventually it will become substantial, especially with the adoption rate that we see.
Yeah. No, valid point. I mean, let's talk a bit about Tether, because
Yeah.
that was there's an interesting piece here actually.
Yeah. So I think we discussed it the last week we talked about, or I can't remember when was it, but I did tell people that, I really don't think Tether is hiding something, and that they do have the money. And that was indeed the case. And that's primarily because, the regulators are on their throat. They did some bad things. They did some mistakes that I'm not going to pretend they didn't do. For example, what had happened was Bitfinex had some really bad partners. Those partners lost them some money. It was because of the banking relationships. It wasn't that them specifically, Bitfinex, wanted to steal funds, but it just happened, and then they had to borrow from Tether. So all those things happen in a shady way, and that's why the New York Attorney General, they noticed that, and that's how they started all that back and forth, which lasted for about 2.5 years, maybe a bit less, maybe a bit more. I can't really remember, but it was a long process, and it's very clear now that Tether does have the money. They are fully backed 1-to-1. There's no denying this right now. We know that they are cooperating with regulators. Regulators told them that, you shouldn't be doing business with US people, especially New York residents, which I think has been the case for Bitfinex for quite some time.
Yeah, exactly. That's nothing new actually, to be honest, with the whole New
Yeah,
York piece.
yeah.
Yeah,
And especially like just getting a $19 million fine
it's
is
nothing.
pretty much nothing.
No,
Yeah,
it's
for
nothing. It's
them
just
it's
a
nothing.
slap on the wrist.
Yeah, exactly. Plus, we also see like the growth of stable coins in like USDC, USDT, and BUSD, and many others. It's so rapid that we can understand why Tether is growing as well. So
Yeah,
it's not like Tether is growing in a way that's abnormal compared to the rest. And actually, Tether has gone down in terms of its market share. It has been hurt. So I think so far this has been pretty damaging to the market, because a lot of people got scared. They were afraid Tether
yeah,
was going to have some issues, and there is still FUD around it. There are still people that are denying that Tether is fully backed. Maybe they are right. Maybe they will be proven right one day, because Tether might steal all the funds now. but I just don't. But I just don't feel that's the truth. I don't think that's the actual scenario. Maybe because of the situation with the CBDCs, eventually regulators shut them down and they get replaced by something else, which is entirely possible. But that's a different story from them not having the funds.
yeah. No, exactly. I think as more regulation hits this space, I mean that's always the case, and I think as there becomes a more need for control from official bodies, I think we'll always have that what if situation. But
Yeah.
on another note, I mean we've got more buys of Bitcoin, right? Square, 170 million.
Yeah, we don't know when they bought it. I
Mm.
don't know if they did say precisely when, but they did buy actually pretty high, like 200,000. Excuse me, yeah, 51,200. Sorry, and they bought about 170 million worth of Bitcoin, which is quite weird to me, because they started with a really small purchase back in September of 2020.
Yeah.
And it was kind of weird because they had all those Bitcoin related products. At least they do offer Bitcoin buying and selling. There was another article that didn't have on here about Sqaure. They did share their quarterly statement, and they did say that they sold, at least potentially people sold or bought in their platform about 4.5 billion worth of Bitcoin, which is a lot of money,
Yeah.
especially if we compare it to, let's say, Coinbase and stuff. We do know that that's a pretty big number. And of course, like they have put essentially about 5% of the cash in Bitcoin, which is a decent amount, but still they're quite a big company. They're growing really fast. And I think along with PayPal, they are the most important ones to watch because they've grown, both of them, PayPal and Sqaure, and they've grown bigger than actual banks. So we're seeing sort of neobanks become banks, especially because Sqaure actually got a license, a banking license. So Sqaure can be a bank now as well, which does change things quite a bit. And we're going to talk about banks later on as well. And when it comes to MicroStrategy,
Yep.
the man, he's buying relentlessly. I saw a joke the other day on Twitter where there was somebody saying that because they bought 1 billion with money that they borrowed. They issued a bond. Essentially, they have found a way to take advantage of the bond market, and they are borrowing at really low cost so that they can offer people some of the upside as well. It's essentially like people get a less risky way, less risky exposure, but it's mainly people that probably wouldn't have had the exposure. And I'm not mentioning people, it's actually funds. It's big people who have certain mandates and they cannot really invest outside the bond market, but they can buy, MicroStrategy debt. And yeah, the joke that I read was something along the lines that, and they just sold the last furnitures from their offices to buy that extra 10 million.
Exactly right. That's it.
Yeah, because they bought, and like, okay, so the guy bought that much. They bought as much as they could have had. They've borrowed again and again, and now, and they keep on buying. Like he doesn't stop. Like he bought another 10 million and I'm just thinking, like, where does that money come from?
Exactly right. He's clearly shaking a magic tree, magic money
Like
tree.
he must be selling something. like I'm not like, okay, I mean his company is profitable, but how profitable can a company be to just make 10 million? Like, because he was not making 100 million per year. I think he was making something like 50.
Yeah.
So for him to buy and again about 10 million worth of stuff, it's just I don't know how he does it. They're probably selling something. I don't know.
Oh, it all soon come to light at some point, right?
Yeah. Well, I think that he's being quite smart with what he's doing, because he's essentially getting even more upside. It's kind of like a speculative attack, and I don't know if he can stop. Maybe the regulators come in and they're like, okay, look, now this is getting too much. Like it's getting too far, because if the price of Bitcoin starts going down, they probably won't be able to service the debt no matter what happens. So I don't think he can continue much more, because then again, this will start looking like he's actually doing something illegal. It's not illegal, but eventually regulators will just say, look, that's far too dangerous for this to happen under our watch.
Well, it's a bit similar to with the whole sort of Elon situation, right? Because they're kind of trying to come at him for potentially pumping with the talks, with the tweets, with the buying, and this can also fall into that sort of same category to a certain extent. MicroStrategy again is buying $1 billion worth of this. So
Yeah, I don't think they can really affect the price that much now. Dogecoin is much smaller. It's about 5 billion worth, but 5-10 billion. But with Bitcoin around 1 trillion, that's a bit of a different discussion. Like, Michael Saylor cannot really pump Bitcoin. Neither can like Elon Musk at this point. I think like for him to pump it, like even his Doge tweets haven't been pumping Doge recently. So I don't know how much more can be done. But overall, it just comes down to them considering him acting as a fund rather than a company. So it's like having a shell company. Like
Yeah.
MicroStrategy is not really anything else other than a Bitcoin fund right now. At least, it can't be considered that. So yeah.
Let's see. Well, I mean, and then we've also got, well, when we are talking about this, there is more Bitcoin funds and ETFs, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I think I did a mistake. Yeah, I was gonna share something else. That was gonna go with the bank news I had on. Okay, so we've had a lot of similar products to Grayscale, and recently, I don't know if you heard of this, like the Grayscale price, the
Yeah,
price
the
of
negative,
GBP.
going negative, right?
Yeah, it went negative 12%, which is not, it didn't happen just because Bitcoin was going down. It did, maybe it was a bit of a technical correction as well. Maybe it did play a role,
Mm.
some other stuff. But in general, I just feel like because of the Canadian ETF and because there have been so many different competitors to Grayscale, we've got Osprey, we've got Arca, we've got Skybridge. I think there are some others I forget. We've got several different products in Europe and other places. So I just feel like, you know, they're even talking about an Ethereum ETF right now in Canada, which could be the first, it will be the first one, and it might come relatively soon. And we already have two ETFs in Canada, and usually Canada leads the way because it's easier for them to pass certain things
Mm.
because they are smaller. But I think that if Canada has done it and a commissioner of the SEC has said that they are thinking at least for an ETP and that the time has come, I think they're going to do it. Because at the same time, there is that problem. Right now, Grayscale having that premium and then going to discount, it's just such a problematic thing because investors lose much more from this than they would than anyone would lose through that ETF. Like it's just a constant problem because people need to find a way to get exposure so they get into the wrong things. So maybe now the Grayscale product could go into a 20% discount. This is seriously possible because
Mm.
we cannot get the Bitcoins out and you know people are not putting any more Bitcoin into it because they just know that if they put it in, they cannot take it out. So the only thing they can do is sell, and they might have to sell at any price. And the only thing would be maybe potentially, um, you know, we see them turn into an ETF or their Bitcoins get into an ETF product. And we're actually having about 4 proposals right now. We've got the CBOE one. I don't know which are the other ones. I can't remember. It was just like a Vanek and SIBO. I can't remember the others, but I think there are more than 2 proposals out there.
Pretty. I mean, I was thinking about this the other day because that sort of, it felt like there was FUD being generated, right? Because I mean, how but does it really impact it with GBTC becoming sort of discounted or going negative? Does it generally have a bearish impact on Bitcoin as a whole?
No, actually it doesn't. And it's funny because it's acting as support in a way.
Yeah.
And what I mean by this is that if those people could have sold in the open market, it would have caused a bigger dip on the price
Yeah.
potentially. It's maybe it is a bit negative because let's say somebody sees Grayscale having a
Mm.
10-15% discount, and he's like, okay, I'm just gonna sell my Bitcoin and then get into Grayscale, which is 50% cheaper. So that would actually lower the price. So it's not ideal. It's generally good to have a premium, at least a small one, because it just gives the incentive for funds to get a placement into Grayscale. So what they would do is they would get Bitcoin in Grayscale, that they would get the shares, and then they would sell those Bitcoins to capture the premium.
Mm.
But now it doesn't exist. So it just means there's less buying pressure because of that.
So
But
now,
it's not like something negative per se.
okay. Now, I mean, let's talk a bit about the big banks wanting in. Who's wanting into Bitcoin now?
Yeah. Well, we see a lot of the narrative change.
Yeah.
We discussed this about BlackRock, which was really big as they
Yes.
were, like they said, they're doubling in. Now we've got JP Morgan saying investors could make Bitcoin 1% of portfolios, which is something you would never hear. You remember all the stuff in
Yeah, yeah, and I
2017.
remember back when Jamie Dimon, he had a proper bee in his bonnet about anybody even trading Bitcoin within
Yeah,
JP
exactly.
Morgan, and now the narrative's completely changed to being, a 1% potential in everyone's portfolio for
Yeah,
exposure.
yeah, it's a totally different game right now. And we just see Goldman Sachs set to jump back into
Yeah,
cryptocurrency trading. And we also saw, we remember, BNY Mellon and MasterCard also embracing cryptocurrencies.
it's
So,
interesting you talk about Goldman Sachs. Was that I was seeing, I think it was a tweet or an article that I saw, and they were saying, oh, the last time Goldman Sachs opened up their trading desk, that was when Bitcoin just went right the way down. But somehow I don't think that's the case, in all honesty.
yeah, well, it might be in the short term for stuff I'm going to say, I'm
Mm,
going to touch briefly in terms of what the micro environment looks like. Because I think part of the reason why Bitcoin has stayed kind of low, or it just had an extra correction, or it could correct further, is because of the environment in other markets. Because in general, we've gone up too much too fast, and the
mm.
system is unstable. So overall, I don't think this is the top, but this doesn't mean we might not see some extra pain in the short term because of stuff happening, yeah, in other markets. And now, like, final thing about the banks getting in, or like general big stuff. Fidelity's head of global macro says Bitcoin may have place in some portfolios, and we know that Fidelity has actually a digital asset firm. I think they have like a
Yeah,
different arm.
because this Fidelity Investments piece isn't necessarily new to today, because they were looking into the whole digital asset space actually last year, as I recall, in um when I was researching before as well. So it's kind of just more highlighting.
Yeah. They are actually already in.
Yeah,
They do have a pretty big. I don't know if it's a fund or if it's just like they have a custody solution. So I'm pretty sure they are already having proper research team. They
yeah.
already have some products and stuff. I haven't researched it specifically, but I do know that they are already in a way.
And then
And yep.
what else? What I was
Oh,
gonna
and
say,
and
yeah,
last bank that I forgot.
City,
Sorry.
yeah,
Yeah, it's Citibank. Yeah. So cryptocurrency of choice for international trade. That's what they said. Bitcoin could become, and that's what Citi says. So again, it just comes down to the fact that we just see the same thing over and over again in terms of banks, and we already know, for example, that PayPal is in,
yeah.
and they are looking to expand. I don't know. Did they come to the UK? I don't know if you have any.
I haven't seen anything specifically on the UK market with regards to Bitcoin.
Because I don't know if maybe I misread it or I can't remember correctly, but probably the UK was the first one they would roll out the same products that they offer the US, because they had said that in Q1 to 21 they would do some stuff for global, for other countries other than the US. I don't know if they did
You know,
it.
I haven't. I mean, I use PayPal every now and then for various bits and bobs, but I can't say I've seen anything Bitcoin related yet. Yet.
Okay, yeah, makes sense. So yeah, they are looking to make a new crypto unit. I think they had already spoken about it, but they probably just mentioned it again.
Yeah.
And yeah,
And then we have a potential ban, right, of Bitcoin mining in China. This seems to be interestingly enough, right? I mean, if we kind of go back to 2017, 2018, and we can even say 2019, right? Whenever there used to be some FUD coming out of China, it did used to have a bit of an impact in general on the markets. But I'll be honest, this time round, it does feel different, because I don't know. It certainly feels like to me that a lot of a lot of the negative news or sentiment that might come out of China doesn't necessarily have too much of an impact on the price this time round.
Yeah, I think, we did experience a lot of China FUD, so probably people are immune to it at
Yeah.
this point. I don't know if people really care
Yeah.
about it anymore.
No, I
I'm
don't.
not,
I don't care at all, actually, to be honest, when I hear it.
yeah. And at the same time, we do know for a fact that Bitcoin mining has become a lot more decentralized. We know for a fact that it's growing in North America. We know that it's growing in even some random places that maybe some people wouldn't think about it, like Venezuela or Iran.
Yeah.
And this is just a specific region that declared war on crypto mining, and some of it doesn't really have to do with crypto mining itself. It's just because of all the subsidies they give to electricity
Yeah.
companies and stuff, and then they abuse that to mine crypto. So they make tons of money with stuff, essentially national resources. Let's call them, let's call them that. So it's not something that has to do with Bitcoin itself.
Yeah.
It's just them potentially doing something. Plus, you have to remember that, look, especially in China, a lot of stuff work with bribes. Okay, so it might seem like a very strict country and all that, and in some ways it really is. But when it comes to doing stuff like in many Eastern European countries, and I think it's everywhere in the world, if you pay the right amount and if you pay the right people, you will get your job
You get,
done.
exactly. You get what you
Yeah.
want.
Yeah, so it might be even that they might just be like, okay, you're getting all that money. So instead of us taxing you and the state getting the money, we'll just say we're banning you and you give us the money directly. So,
Yeah.
so it's just something that people need to remember whenever they hear all that stuff. Plus, if they just don't go in and confiscate the miner and actually be, okay, you're going to prison for what you're doing, these miners can always relocate. There's so many places that they can go, and I think this is what has been happening for the last few months, in my opinion, because the hash rate hasn't really grown at all. It's probably grown, the price has gone up, let's say 500%, 400, 500% over the last 3 or 4 months, maybe five. But the actual hash rate has gone up only 20, 30%, which is a tiny amount. And it's been a pretty long period that
Hmm.
Bitcoin has been going up. So it doesn't really explain to me that, I think there have been miners getting in. Yes, the production of new mining units is slow. But again, I think that just a 20% increase is too low. So I think there has to be some relocation going on in general. And eventually you will see hash rate grow really fast.
So let's have a look at what I mean. Let's have a look at some of the BTC charts then in that case, because well, we're toying with about what 50,000 at the moment, aren't we? Around 50,000, which actually we've had a bit of an increase in price actually over the past few days.
Yeah. Last time we talked, I was wrong because I thought the price was gonna go higher.
Hmm.
I did say though that if we start breaking down, we could potentially see 42 and 40 or lower, which I think could still be the case at some point. Although right now Bitcoin looks fairly bullish. Once again, we have a fairly small gap over the weekend because the price, when the CME closed, the price was around 49 100 maybe. Now the
Okay.
price is 2% higher, so it's not that much. But if we just look at all the previous times, every time we start with a gap up, we did have a bit of a violent move down. So I cannot rule a big move down. But I'm just going to say something else when it comes to Ethereum, which is a lot cleaner in my opinion, because on our last video, I had mentioned the whole um,
Yeah.
1440 area, which would have been ideal for buying. We did go there, we bounced, then had another dip, and now the price is looking quite bullish in my opinion. It's starting to go up, and it doesn't really look weak. Ethereum had outperformed the rest of the altcoins for quite some time. We had about a month, probably a bit less, of underperformance of Ethereum against other altcoins, which was the whole narrative I had mentioned about layer ones and layer
Yeah.
two doing better than Ethereum because of the fees. But I think we're just coming back to potentially a new wave of newcomers coming. Potentially, now the fee pressure in Ethereum is smaller. Potentially, I don't know, you probably know a bit more about this. Maybe the hard fork.
There's EIP 1559 that recently got passed, which
Yeah,
looks to turn the sort of fee model on its head a bit, and almost makes Ethereum a deflationary asset because
yeah,
there seems to be a burn mechanism within the transaction fees. So
yeah.
fundamentally, you're reducing supply at that point, and whenever we see a reduction in supply, it normally does have a upward appreciation on the price.
Yes. And do you know when that's coming?
Well, it's been approved, and supposedly the developers are looking to roll this out in July. So my
Okay.
personal opinion here is this is bullish news, because it does level the playing field when it comes to transaction fees. You can still tip miners. You can give a miner a tip within that whole process, but the base fees kind of are fundamentally controlled by the network. So therefore, it makes it fairer across the board. So that you shouldn't really see all these exaggerated transaction fees and prices to a certain extent. So for me, in my opinion, I think that is bullish news, and I suspect leading up to July, we're going to start seeing an appreciation in price. I wouldn't say it's partly driven by that, but I would say that it does have a good impact, a positive impact
Yeah.
more than anything else.
Yeah, I think Ethereum has a few things going for it in general that when it comes to, again, I think it's just like that constant rotation that I think we're going to keep on seeing sometimes certain sectors of the market
Yeah.
outperforming. Sometimes it will be NFTs, other time it will be, recently I was talking about gaming stuff. Like
Mm.
I saw some stuff related to Chili's, some other similar projects that had to do potentially with tokenization of football team
Yeah.
cards, and like several stuff like that. That and those projects did do well over the last few days. Maybe some stuff that are related to video. Maybe sometimes it's storage protocols. So we will keep on seeing certain parts do well because look, the market has grown so much that we cannot really expect everything to do well all the time.
No, exactly.
That's literally impossible. And people have certain attention spans. Certain times look hot depending on several things going on in the market, and it's just not something that's very simple. But I think Ethereum, because it does have a potential ETF coming, it does have, let's say, the Ethereum fund, it has Ethereum 2.0. Ethereum DeFi seems to be growing again. And I think I had this before, but I didn't talk about it. For example, there is a DeFi index fund by Bitwise, which did grow substantially in just a few weeks, at least for the size of the DeFi market. And I think because the DeFi market as well did take a pretty big hit and corrected about 35
Yeah.
to 50% along with Ethereum. So it might be that we're coming back to that sector doing well. Because at the end of the day, look, any layer one protocol can pump. But for now, at least we need to see that these are more speculative. These things are not really generating enough fees to sustain, to have a sustainable demand.
Yeah.
Not that I think that Ethereum fees are that massive that, for example, um, they would play such a big role, at least for now. However, the way things are going with this proposal, something that was actually selling pressure for Ethereum is now going to become demand, like you said,
Yeah.
because those coins would go to miners from the fees, and the miners would probably sell them, potentially maybe keep them because they are bullish Ethereum.
Yeah.
So yes, a part of it would stay um, aside, maybe because they want to stake as well, miners. But it just comes back down to the fact that there's a big difference between that money being sold on the market and that money being burned. And I think, like you said, Ethereum has about a 6% inflation rate.
Yeah.
But because right now the fees are so high and there's such big demand for Ethereum, that when those fees are being burned, which are probably equal to the block reward, I think there have been times where the fees have been higher than the
Yeah.
block rewards. Maybe it's not every day, but we're talking about a really big change. Like essentially, Ethereum comes down and being as disinflationary as Bitcoin is, because it could go down to maybe even 0% or even less than what it was. Now, I don't know how successful that will be, because I just think people will need to keep on paying something extra to miners. I don't know how that fee will be set. I
Well, it's a
haven't
tip.
really
It's
thought.
a tipping system. There's a tipping system. So you have the transaction fee, and then there'll be an optional element where you can tip the miner.
Yeah, because again, the people need to actually pay like a so-called tip to get ahead of others. Like it's impossible for the market to have a flat fee. So we'll see. But
No,
again, I agree that it's bullish.
no,
Yeah.
exactly. So there you go. Well, I think that wraps up our intro into the week. I think actually on that note, to be honest, the word bullish.
Yeah, I think we are bullish at this stage. Again, I said it last week and we dropped, but I don't think that the drop was that scary or anything special, because we just came back to where we had started.
Yeah,
That looks like a pretty healthy rise. If that turns bearish, which I want to be clear that it could, I think that Ethereum could drop down to potentially somewhere around here. I think I don't
around 1,200
man, I don't want
ish.
to say that we're gonna go down again, and it would be very bearish, like something like this. That's the volume profile. That's the point of control here. So it could go down here, and yeah, it's tricky because if Bitcoin could go to, let's say, 38 or 40,000, I cannot say that Ethereum is going to go up in US dollar terms. Potentially, it will go up in, let's say, Bitcoin terms, as it's starting to look fairly bullish right here. It
Yeah,
looks a lot more bullish than it used to. It actually stopped right at the 300-day moving average here. It has been consolidating and turning up, which it hadn't really done so far. We had never seen over the last 2 weeks at least, not 2 weeks, let's say a month, any upside. Like we hadn't seen
yeah,
any higher highs and higher lows, which we are actually observing. And we had actually dropped below the 200-day moving average. And now the 200-day moving average has
acting
been
as
crossed.
support.
We are on the upside again, and it seems to have turned into support.
Yeah,
So I think we're in a better position that we were. Clearly, we did have a bit of a drop. And I did say that I thought Ethereum was going to underperform Bitcoin, at least back then. And I think now things are probably turning potentially due to the EIP, the new proposal. Yeah.
no, it feels like it. It feels like it. Right. Well, on that note, then BTC Macro, as always, a pleasure to have you on the show, and let's catch up. Let's catch up in a week's time and see how we fare.
Yeah, exactly. It's always a pleasure as well to be on.
Likewise.
So thank you a lot. Bye bye.
Cheers. Speak to you later.